Who starts at the 4, Markkanen or Mobley?
Should be Mobley. Absolutely should be Mobley. And then Mobley backs up the 5 in Jared Allen, and Lauri Markkanen gets the remaining power forward minutes. But can I just say, I am not crazy about that front court.
Let's move on to the Cleveland Cavaliers, Mort. I don't think we are going to be talking playoffs for them, but they've made, a number of offseason changes. The biggest, of course, getting Evan Mobley with the number 3 overall pick. But then they made the confusing acquisition of Lauri Markkanen, and all of a sudden, they re-signed Jared Allen for 5 years, $100 million. They draft Evan Mobley at number 3. They still have Kevin Love just hanging out there. And then, late August, I believe, they come out and acquire Lauri Markkanen as well. So how do you see that front court shaking out? Like, I'm assuming Jared Allen is the starting center.
Yes.
I don't think Kevin Love factors into the mix, really. They shouldn't be factoring him into the mix as like a potential starter. But who starts at the 4, Markkanen or Mobley?
Should be Mobley. Absolutely should be Mobley. And then Mobley backs up the 5 in Jared Allen, and Lauri Markkanen gets the remaining power forward minutes. But can I just say, I am not crazy about that front court. This is a very old school front court in that sense, just with raw size that you'll almost have to play 2 bigs at all times. Mm-hmm. Because if you kind of say, okay, let's play Isaac Okoro at the 4 for an extended period of times. Okay, but then where are the remaining trio going to get their minutes from? Like, they can't all share the center position. So I'm very curious as to just the makeup of this team. The Lauri Markkanen acquisition, I just don't get it. What they needed going into this year was a wing. They got their big in Mobley. Like, obviously you take him because he was the best player left on the draft board. He mm-hmm. he has credible upside, one of the highest potential players in the NBA currently. But why would you then go out and double down on the big position by taking on Lauri Markkanen instead of finding a wing? That to me just so idiotic. I don't understand what they're trying to do there. And I realize that Cavs fans are going to be in the comment section going, well, actually, no, there's no actually here. Lauri Markkanen, who I've seen close up for 4 years, is very much an empty calorie player. He is worth maybe half of what he got paid. He can't play center, regardless of how much you try. He can't play the 3, regardless of how much you try. Oh, no. He is more or less exclusively a shooter who on hot days, you can ride, but on cold days, you better sit him down after 10 minutes and not put him back in the game, because otherwise he's just going to waste minutes. That was one of the weirdest offseason signings that I saw, where I was just, why don't you just either save that money or try to relinquish some assets and get in a proper wing where you then absorb that money into something else. Well, actually, they shipped out Larry Nance Jr., so right. That was a little bit. But still, like, then move Larry Nance and additional assets for a wing instead.
Right.
It just didn't make sense. Plus, Larry Nance is the better player. Like,
right.
I won't get it. I just don't get it. And I think by the end of the year, Cavs fans are going to realize that, not even to the end of the year, like in the middle of the year, and they're going to be like, oh, hell, let's come up with Markkanen trades immediately.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume Cleveland is feeling pressure to get back into the playoffs, and that's why they went for Markkanen. And maybe it's
then they should have stuck with Larry Nance.
But maybe it's just like a pure talent grab at that. Like, no one's going to take this guy. Like, let's get him in here, and then maybe we can flip him later for something better. But I agree with you. Larry Nance is the better player right now. He's still under contract for 2 more years, I believe. So it's not like he's an expiring they had to get rid of right away. Right. Under a very reasonable contract as well.
Yes.
So like I would assume Larry Nance has more positive trade value than Lauri Markkanen will.
Yes, and Nance can also play center. So
right.
You lose out on positional flexibility. You lose out on contract value in relation to talent, and you lose out on talent as well. You lose out on passing, you lose out on defense, you lose out on rebounding. I need to calm myself, but this just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
And I'm guessing that Markkanen is going to start over Mobley at the 4. I'm guessing Mobley's going to primarily just back up Jared Allen at the 5 to get his feet wet in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And I think that more than anything else is going to infuriate Cavs fans. Like if they, I mean, Evan Mobley has the highest upside of any player on this team.
Yes.
Like they should be building around him from day one. I know they've been rebuilding now for a couple of years, and you've got, some other intriguing guys like Sexton and Garland, who we'll get into, Okoro, who we'll get into. But Evan Mobley is the crown jewel of this team right now. And I worry that the acquisition of Markkanen is going to decrease his minutes to the extent that we don't really get to see very much of him.
Yes, that is correct. Again, going back to Larry Nance, even if they stuck with Larry Nance over Markkanen, Nance would have passed the ball to Evan Mobley on the court.
Right.
That is, you won't see that from Markkanen a lot. You just won't.
Yeah. So let's get into the 3 spot, because as you mentioned, Mort, that's the big question mark for this team. Like, you feel good about Sexton and Garland, who we'll touch on in a minute. And then they acquire Ricky Rubio for Taurean Prince. So they've got good depth there as well. The 3 spot is just a screaming liability at this point, because it's basically one of Isaac Okoro or Cedi Osman. And other than that, I don't know, like Dylan Windler, I guess. Like they just don't really have a clear answer there. So I'm guessing Okoro starts at the 3 for them. But how do you see that shaking out?
Can we merge him with Cedi Osman?
That might be the only way to piece together competent minutes at the 3, yeah.
Right. So here's the thing. I actually like Okoro. I think people were a little bit hard on him after the first year, but because he came in and was more or less the player we all expected. I think fans were just kind of like, why aren't you better than what we expected? Like, we wanted to be surprised here. But we knew he came in and was raw offensively. We knew he didn't really have much of an offensive game, but defensively he was as advertised. Of course, he's only going to get better because he's going to get more nuance, more experience level, all of those things. Those are going to play a part. And honestly, 9.6 points per game in 32 minutes, yeah, that's not great. But for someone who came in as a non-scorer or viewed as a non-scorer, I can live with that. The question for me is, how does he respond to this? Like, if he's not going to be a three-point shooter, okay. You know what? That might not be a bad thing. But can you get to the free throw line consistently? Can you then become more of a passer? And to his credit, I think he actually is a pretty decent passer. I don't think he's one of those black holes whatsoever. I think he can move the rock. So, like, he needs to be creative. Realistically, I would want him to look at DeMar DeRozan and go, okay, so what can I do? I can sharpen my handle. I can get the offense going a little bit as this secondary playmaker, because we know Colin isn't that guy. I have to be the second one after Garland to kind of like handle the ball and set people up. And then I need to get to the free throw line. Like, I'm strong as a bulldozer. I need to make sure that I get to the basket, I take contact, and I get to the foul line. I think that has to be the path moving forward. Now, can he do that in his second year? I don't know. But that would definitely be a step in the right direction. I'm not out on him by any stretch, but this season is going to get tough if he is much the same like in his rookie season.
Yeah. And I mean, the good thing for the Cavs, especially with Markkanen and Mobley now in the fold, they don't need a ton of scoring from Okoro. Right. Like, you have Garland and Sexton as your 2 main scorers in the backcourt. You have Lauri Markkanen, who could score 15 or 20 a night. Jared Allen's not going to provide much offensively, but in the minutes that Mobley plays, especially as he gets more comfortable in the NBA, like, he has a pretty immense upside on that end of the floor as well. So, like, you don't need Isaac Okoro to average 20 points a night for this team to make sense. Like, he needs to, his value to the team is primary wing defender. Like, if you could play that role well, whatever you score is a bonus. But as you said, I mean, the more well-rounded he becomes, the better. It does just feel like that is the one spot where opponents are going to be able to really take advantage of Cleveland, especially like bigger. I know, Okoro's 6'5", 225, or so he's listed as. So bigger wings, like I don't know what they do against a Kevin Durant. Like there's not a single player on this roster that stands a prayer. And that's hell. I mean, most rosters don't have a prayer.
I was about to say.
But I mean, even like a Paul George, like bigger 3s and 4s.
Yeah.
Like Markkanen's not going to be able to guard stretch 4s. Who do they have? Like Okoro is one guy, but he's really the only plus defender they have 1 through 4. And, most teams have more than one good offensive option. So
right.
I think that's a spot that could be a major liability for them.
I would agree. I have to admit, I'm coming in on the Cavs. I'm pretty low on their expectations. I'm super excited to watch Evan Mobley.
Yep.
And that's about it.
Well, I mean, Sexton and Garland, we are both. Yeah. We are fans of both of those guys, and we think that Sexton gets a bad rap from Cleveland fans.
Absolutely.
This is an interesting season though, because this is going to be Sexton's 4th year, so he's currently eligible for an extension. That we have heard zero about any rumblings of them coming close to a deal, and given how much his name had been floated in trade rumors this offseason, I don't think a deal is likely. So do you think this is the season where they have to decide, can we build around these two guys, or do we have to choose between one or the other?
Yeah, so I actually don't think it's a question of choice. That I don't think. I think it's just a matter of what do you want to do moving forward. Like, is Sexton your guy? Do you want to have a guy who's 6'1", who will probably end up averaging 30? Like, let's be honest, the trajectory he's on is freaking outstanding. I mean, it wouldn't come as a surprise if he was able to average that. But do you kind of look at that and go, okay, we can build around a 6'1" guy who really isn't a fantastic playmaker, although he did take leaps last year. And is that enough? I don't know. Maybe you should. And also, by the way, if you try to trade him this season before he enters free agency, I wonder if that's going to play a little with his trade value. I'd be fearful of that, at least. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't think it's a matter of choice. I think it's just a matter of figuring out what the hell you want. Like, do you want a team where every position player is able to make advanced reads? Okay, then Colin Sexton isn't for you. Do you want a team where you have at least one scorer who could develop into one of the best scorers in the league? Then Colin Sexton is for you. It's just a matter of figuring out your priorities as an organization.
Yeah.
And given that they traded for Markkanen, who's also going to be shot hungry, I wonder what their logic is with Sexton. There's a part of me that thinks ultimately that Markkanen was being acquired because they kind of wanted to say, all right, if we are pivoting away from Colin Sexton, maybe the package we get in return isn't that competent offensively as Sexton is. In that case, we can pivot more to Markkanen getting more shots. Like, that's just me thinking out loud. That might not be true. But yeah, it's a weird situation because I would absolutely have given him an extension at this point. And hell, they can still make it. There's still time.
Right.
But it does seem like that he's been in the rumor mill forever, and fans seem to be extremely harsh on him. And I don't know how he feels, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's privately a little bit annoyed with being in Cleveland because the fans really aren't backing him, and it's not an a proper situation for him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a difficult decision for Cleveland. Like, when they took Sexton, they didn't know Garland was going to fall into their laps the next year. And once he did, and considering the leap that he took from year 1 to year 2, I think if they do have to choose between the two, they're going to choose Garland over Sexton. But as you said, his upcoming foray into restricted free agency, and I think there have been rumblings that he wants a near max contract extension that is going to affect the offers that teams are willing to give. Like, they're going to be able to talk to his agent, whether legal or not. They will back channel, find out what he wants. If he's saying we want, a max, we're expecting a max deal next summer, then teams are going to be like, all right, then we're not giving up that much for you because we have to get ready to pay that type of a deal. So I do wonder if Cleveland's going to be able to find something if they do go that route of we're not willing to pay him what he wants, so we're going to move off of him now.
Right.
I wonder if they're going to be able to find an acceptable offer for him.
It's a tough situation overall because, like, I understand that Sexton has flaws, but I think we're overthinking his flaws at times.
Yeah.
Like, he is such a highly influential offensive player. He can get to the foul line a ton. His reputation as a bad shooter still dumbfounds me. I mean, 38.5% for his career. He's never been below league average as a 3-point shooter. And that's on almost 4 attempts per game. Like, I think the criticism now have reached the level of absurdity. So it might behoove them to just kind of say, all right, clean break for all parties, including him. Maybe he goes somewhere else. Maybe they get in on a Ben Simmons deal or whatever. Like, I was initially against Philly acquiring Colin Sexton because I don't think he fits the timeline that you want. You want a more in-prime player. But you know what? The dude might be a 26-point scorer this coming season. So I don't even care anymore. Like, it's fine. Go nuts.
I mean, honestly, he would fit really well with Ben Simmons. Like, his specific strengths and weaknesses would be accentuated by playing alongside Ben Simmons, where it doesn't matter that he is, only 6'1", and isn't a great playmaker, because you have a 6'11" guy who can handle the playmaking duties and the defensive responsibility, and then Sexton could take the scoring duties that Ben does not want to have. So,
you're trying to get Darius Garland to Philly. Okay, I hear
well, I mean, I don't think it's going to actually happen, but conceptually, of the two guys, I think Sexton actually makes more sense next to. It's similar to Indiana, where it's like, I don't see why Indiana would be interested in Ben Simmons if they still have Sabonis. Like, Sabonis or Simmons Turner makes sense. Simmons Sabonis does not.